You know that moment when you get in that mood and you just want to watch something that kind of helps you get the waterworks going? Well, that's what these episodes are for. Not just to make you sad, because crying is not always a sad thing, but certainly to stir those emotions inside you that might make your vision a little bit blurry for a while. I'm Sean Ferrick with TrekCulture, and here are 10 Star Trek episodes that are perfect for a good cry. Number 10, The City on the Edge of Forever. Perhaps one of, if not the, most iconic doomed romances in the franchise, the brief encounter between James T. Kirk and Edith Keeler is a love story that continues to reverberate almost 60 years after hitting our screens. In true time travel agony, there are no real winners here, at least not when it comes to those most directly involved. McCoy's horror at Kirk's actions speaks volumes. From his point of view, with absolutely no context, his captain deliberately prevents him from saving Keeler's life. Do you know what you've done? He knows, Doctor. He knows. It's a devastating moment in the episode and in the history of Kirk himself. The fact that it all comes about so quickly after a number of red herrings still manages to shock the viewer right to this day. When one watches the episode in full knowledge of the events to come, it becomes more tragic seeing Kirk falling in love with the woman he knows must die. As grim as the outcome is, there is a certain beauty in this story, one that is perfect for breaking down those walls. Number 9. Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. Following on from the incredible trauma fest that was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, this film sees its own fair mixture of sorrow and loss, but what really gets the waterworks going is the hope that it offers along the way. Kirk's mission to save his two best friends, for McCoy is suffering just as much as Spock is running out of time, leads him to the final mission of the USS Enterprise. On top of that, he loses the son he had only just come to know, as he is forced to hear the murder over the comms. However, despite both of these huge losses, Spock and McCoy themselves are saved. That final scene on Vulcan, as the crew stands by and James Horner and Alexander Courage's music swells, might just be enough to open that emotional dam. Jim. Your name is Jim. Chopping onions. Number 8. The Offspring. The death of a child may just be the most devastating loss that one could ever feel. What happens when the parent is not capable of emotion but still has to endure it? Such is the painful resolution to The Offspring, featuring the introduction of, and subsequent death of, Data's daughter, Lal. Data achieved on his first attempt at building a positronic brain that which his own father could not, a being capable of emotion, but one that wasn't murderously insane. Lal was sweet and innocent, brimming with curiosity, but those feelings quickly overpowered her. While the logistical ramifications were being discussed by Starfleet on the matter, Data discovered that Lal was on the verge of a system shutdown. There was nothing to be done, so he passively watches as Lal begins to deactivate. She does give him a beautiful parting gift. She tells him that she loves him, and though she knows he cannot return the feeling, she will feel it for both of them. Though it would be years before he would experience true emotions, Data does incorporate her feelings into his own neural net. In a way, he grants her a measure of immortality. Meanwhile, the audience sobs. Number 7. The Bonding. Jeremy Astor's story is not one of just a single loss, but two, as his deceased mother does come back to him, in a way. Lieutenant Marla Astor is killed on an away mission by a remnant of a long-ended war, making her death pointless. Feeling the guilt of this, the world's inhabitant attempts to recreate the happiness that Jeremy felt with his mother, though through illusion. Jeremy's initial utterance of the words, "I'm all alone now," is enough to break even the most hardened hearts, but Picard's assurance that on the Enterprise, no one is alone, will definitely do the trick. The episode raises a poignant question. What choice do the families of Starfleet officers really have when it comes to the dangers of space travel? Jeremy certainly never chose to be in a position of mortal danger. Lieutenant Astor, on the other hand, would know the risks that come with the uniform. Worf's attempt to bond with Jeremy by the end does offer some hope for the boy's future, and only confirms Picard's promise. Though Jeremy wouldn't return again in the next generation, this episode was a strong attempt to show how grief could be handled in the 24th century. Number 6. The Visitor. Losing a parent at any age can be a loss beyond words, but in the Star Trek world, they weren't satisfied with only traumatizing poor Jake once. No, they left the young man in a state of utter limbo, knowing that Ben was alive, but trapped in subspace. Jake's life's work becomes saving his father, taking over everything up till the point of obsession. His writing comes to an end and his marriage dissolves, all while Ben can only watch from mere pockets of time together. Their final meeting, where a dying Jake assures Ben that he can change everything by ending his life while they're together. The love between these two men is almost unbearable to watch, as both Brooks and Tony Todd deliver masterful performances. From their final scene together to Ben's realization that the plan did in fact work, clutching his now teenaged again son, The Visitor is an emotional rollercoaster of an episode, taking the audience through the absolute ringer. If there was ever an episode of Star Trek that truly displayed the love between fathers and sons, it's this one. Number 5. It's Only a Paper Moon. The late Aaron Eisenberg turned in the performance of his career in this late-stage episode of Deep Space Nine, where he displayed the horror and trauma of the Dominion War and its effect on him. The scene shared between Nog and Vic Fontaine, as all of the house lights are brought down and the crowds of the 1950s vanish into thin air, is devastating in its impact and delivery. Nog, in losing his leg, felt the harsh reality of his situation. He was not invulnerable, nor was he safe. He could die at any moment, and it terrified him. Eisenberg spoke about his experiences after this episode aired, in which several veterans reached out to him, saying that he had given a voice to some of their fears. It truly is an episode and a story that is guaranteed to help whatever's been bottled up inside come out into the real world, even if it takes a visit to Las Vegas to get it done. Number 4. Pathfinder. The closing scenes of Pathfinder offer one of the most instantly memorable tear-jerking reunions in Star Trek history. In an episode that fits the theme of this article perfectly, Voyager finally makes direct two-way contact with Starfleet Command. The choice to focus on Barclay for the bulk of the episode belies the emotional hit that comes from the signal reaching the Delta Quadrant. His struggles are a fascinating look into the life of a man obsessed, much as the audience may have found itself becoming. The addition of Commander Troy adds that note of familiarity to proceedings, something that fans could enjoy before the last scene. Admiral Paris telling his son, thousands of light years away, that he's proud of him and that he misses him never fails to break even the stoniest of hearts. Tom Paris's tumultuous relationship with his father had been teased for the show's run, so seeing this one moment was enough to reduce the audience to tears. Keep a docking bay open for us. Magic. Number 3. Similitude. It would be almost easy in the years that have passed since the episode's release to consider Similitude as a bit of a melodramatic episode. The entire plot revolves around the death of a main character, sort of. What truly sells the episode is the performance by Connor Trenier. Sim effectively is Trip, so as the audience is watching him struggle to come to terms with his fate, really, they are watching one of the main characters offer themselves up as the sacrificial lamb. The escape attempt only dials this up to 11, but is delivered in such a pitch-perfect way that it's hard not to be affected. The episode's score goes a long way towards breaking hearts as well, and that lone woodwind melody ringing through the silent halls of Enterprise. Archer's determination, Phlox's grief, T'Pol's realization of Trip's true feelings, and everything just lands in the episode. Be wary of pairing this episode with a good bottle of wine, because it's likely to leave you bawling into your glass. Number 2. Tears of the Prophets. The death of Jadzia Dax remains, to this day, one of the most shocking and upsetting moments in Star Trek. For a main character to be killed in so simple a manner is bad enough, but with the episode already teasing that Dax and Worf are about to start a family, this one really affects the audience. Though Jadzia does get a chance to say goodbye to Worf, it's also shockingly quick and violent. This was a move that affects even the most casual fan of the series. Terry Farrell's performance is so likeable throughout Deep Space Nine, and her relationship with Worf and Sisko just works so well. Though Star Trek had certainly employed shocking character deaths before, the writing and delivery here cut through any resolve not to burst into floods of tears each time. Jadzia's final words to Worf, only to be followed by his roar of anguish, warning the Klingon dead that a warrior is on their way, is both steeped in Trek lore and works as a standalone moment. It's emotional just thinking about this episode. Number 1. The Inner Light. The Inner Light is a seminal episode, one that clearly strikes chords with so many fans. True, it did find its place on a recent list of overrated episodes, but that doesn't disqualify its power to break the viewer into tiny little pieces. There are so many moments in the episode that combine to devastate, and that final scene. Ooh. Picard, standing in his quarters, barely able to understand what has just happened to him, is handed the small box by Riker. Opening it, he lets his number 1 know with a tilt of his head that he needs to be alone, then reveals the flute that he had spent so many years learning to play. Those closing notes over this episode, floating like a dirge through space, are enough to get the waterworks going on any Trekkie, whether they be long-term fans or first-timers. The Inner Light often finds itself turning up on so many lists for so many reasons, but today let it be the episode that warms, breaks and then carefully mends your heart all in one go. Anyway, I'm off to bawl into a glass of rosé. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this list. Thank you so much. Thank you to the lovely Philip Magnus who edited this into something watchable. Much appreciated. Whatever you do in the next time it is until I see you again, make sure that you look after yourself. Follow TrekCulture on Twitter at TrekCulture. Follow on Blue Sky and TikTok at the same handle. And at TrekCultureYT on Instagram. I'm at Sean Ferrick on the various socials too. You are wonderful. You are awesome. You are all of these things. You deserve the best. Thanks very much, folks.